Hello, everyone. So today on our 62nd author interaction under our Trends Literature series, we have a very, very special guest. She's an author, she's a health columnist, she's a very famous nutritionist, and also a weight management consultant. She's none other than Kavita Devgan. And we are going to talk to her on her recently released book, which has been published by Rupa Publications, The Don't Diet Plan. And so we find out from her today, does don't diet plan work? Do fat diets work? Or we would rather build up sustainable habits? It's a very, very relevant book during the festive season and even other times. And she definitely, through her literary works, does initiate us on a journey of long-lasting habits. So welcome, Kavita. This is indeed a pleasure for us to have you today with us.
Thank you. Totally my pleasure. Looking forward to this.
This is the book that we're talking about, The Don't Diet Plan by Kavita Devgan. So Kavita, to delve into the conversation straight away, I must ask you and I must tell everyone that I think all of us are totally exhausted from thinking about our weight all the time. Kind of paranoid, as it is mentioned somewhere that I read about your book. So how do we stop the living? How do we stop this fear that we have perpetually about food, about gaining weight? How do we stop that?
I totally get this, Neeta, and I get this sentiment that you are mentioning because I hear this all the time, all around me. Not just my clients or my patients, but my friends, my family, personally me too. We all go through these emotions, and which is why you must have noticed the very first chapter in the book is called Do Not Fear the Food.
Yes.
Because I felt that I needed to, it's like take the bull by the horn. So I thought that this is what I needed to clarify right at the outset. Food is your friend. It's not your foe. Don't make it your foe. The moment you understand what you're eating, you'll stop fearing it. Simple. It's as simple as that. As long as you are confident of what you're eating and you are aware what that food you're eating is going to do to your body, you will never fear it. And that is essential, not just for, reaching your right weight and maintaining that weight, but for a good quality of life. You can't have a life where the very source of sustenance to you, the food that you eat, becomes an enemy to you or looks or seems like an enemy to you, right? So it's very easy to do that. Make friends with your food. I mean, it sounds very esoteric, but trust me, it works very, very well. And which is why the very first chapter is do not fear the food. Please understand it.
Very right. And, when I was going through your book, and this is what I realized that, every time I personally keep on worrying about my food or my weight, I think we need to kind of let go of that fear. And as you just mentioned, treat food as your friend. Your new book, you've already written 3 books, Don't Diet, 50 Habits of Young People, Ultimate Grandmother Hacks, 50 Kick-Ass Traditional Habits for a Fitter You. All of these have been bestsellers. And your new book, The Don't Diet Plan, suggests that we don't have to keep on thinking about the diet to keep our food habits and weight in control. So what was the motivating factor for you to kickstart a healthy journey? Not only for yourself, but also for others around you, ultimately your patients, everyone. I mean, everyone stands to gain from your book. And so what was the initial trigger point that you started writing such wonderful books? And now you are onto your 4th book.
Interesting. It's been a very long journey, Neeta. So I've been practicing for almost 25 years now, but I started writing on health in 2000. So that's also been almost 20 years of writing. And I just realized that, in my practice, there are only certain number of people I can connect to or pass on my food philosophy to. Right or wrong, but that's my food philosophy. And I want to spread it to as many people as possible because I know it works. So I realized that my writing was taking me across to a larger number of people. I mean, a much, much larger number of people. And that made me very happy. So books actually were a very natural progression from my columns. So the columns were doing really well. And I met some wonderful editors on the way who gave me the freedom to let me write what I wanted to. And that's where I got the confidence, frankly, to be able to embark on writing a book. Because writing a column of 800 words, 1,000 words is a different ballgame altogether. And a book is at least 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 words. So the very first book, actually, I would say that came out of my observations of that book is Don't Diet, 50 Habits of Thin People. So it was very, very clearly just not too much research, just what I felt were the habits that naturally thin people follow, which I had observed in multiple thousands of people. Like by now I've probably counseled more than thousands of people. It's been 25 years, like I said. So that book was very easy for me to write because it was all in there. I'd observed everything. The second book after that was actually a culmination of a column that I was writing at that time for Dailyo, India Today. And Kaveri was my editor, and she literally gave me a carte blanche. She said, write what you want to. And I realized I wanted to write about the traditional food habits. So the more I wrote about it, the more I was fascinated. And the more I was fascinated, I just wanted that information out there. I just wanted everyone to know about it. That is how Ultimate Grandmother Hacks came about. And then Fix It with Foods, which is the next book, is a very, very special book again, because it talks about the everyday foods that we eat, stuff that we look at with disdain because we get it at the local sabji wala. So I thought that if I actually put it in black and white, what's that humble food, something like, say, even a tinda or mutter or even aloo, or spinach, what all these simple foods which are so pocket friendly and so easily available and so easy to cook, what goodness packs into them. Maybe people would respect them a little bit more. So that is how that book came about everyday superfoods, the foods that we eat every day. So that was, of course, that took a lot of research because, that I had to really research every single food, and there are lot many foods in there. And then this is actually, I don't know how to explain this one. Yeah, because this book wrote itself in the sense that this is basically, there are strategies in this book. This is very different from the first one, the Don't Diet Plan, that has habits. This one is basically like a diet code, Neeta. So it's like things, the strategies that I've seen which work. So if a strategy would work, I would pen it down, So this book was written a chapter at a time over the years. So whatever I realized worked, made it into the book. Whatever I realized doesn't work. So in a way, like I mentioned in my morning talk also, I had it live in the morning, that for this book, my clients were my guinea pigs. Basically I realized what works with them, and that is what I penned here. So every single strategy in this book works. I can vouch for that because I've seen that work with people. So I have just basically converted all those complex strategies into simple, easily doable steps and readable language, And I've also put in, beside strategies, as you must have seen, simple quizzes, so that you can really understand where you are, what is your information level, whether you really know enough about sugar, and do you know how to read the labels. And then there are those diet hacks. Everyone needs hacks, we all need quick solutions as well. So those are all also in there. And then there are those diets like Monday diets. If you've had a bad weekend, how to balance it right away. So, winter diets and anti-pollution diets and everything is there. So this one just happened in a flow. I just wrote it in a flow. I really enjoyed writing this one.
No, I'm sure you enjoyed writing it, and I'm really enjoying reading it. So it's so wonderful, practical. It's just that, some of the questions are such that you feel that you were thinking about it, and here they are, the answers are already there. So you just mentioned that, with your so many years of experience with your patients, you could write down what they were facing, and it's definitely, I must say, a must-have for everyone in their bookshelves, so that they can go back to it, because the chapters are very simply, even in the index, very labeled, very simply, and you can kind of go back and read whatever you want to, come back to what you want to read next. So, yes. One thing which I've noticed, and you do talk about fad diets quite often, and there's a chapter also that you've devoted in the book. So, and you also call them bad diets, as I heard you saying. So, you must tell us what, according to you, because everyone is really bothered about fad diets right now. So, what, according to you, are fad diets, and why are these avoidable as per you?
They're definitely avoidable. I tell people to just stay away from them. If you respect your body, if you respect your health, if you respect your happiness, just completely drop the fat diets. Just remove the whole concept from your mindset. Because one, they're not as good as they seem to be. They do not deliver the goods. So there will be no results. You'll probably end up harming yourself only by the end of it. So do not take that risk. You get that one body. Why do you want to mess it up with just something which is so experimental? Why do you want to be that bad a guinea pig? And especially when there are other healthier, smarter ways of losing weight. If there weren't, I would have still said take that risk. But there are ways to lose weight which are far healthier, far more sustainable, far more enjoyable. When you have to lose weight, it should be a process. And it is a process. It's not something which is going to happen overnight or over a week or even over a month. The way you gained weight over years, at least give it a few months to knock it off. That's the right way to go about it. So if it's going to take that much time, better make it enjoyable. Better make it something that you can actually do it without thinking, without really having to completely revamp your lifestyle. And there are ways to do it. If there weren't, I wouldn't be saying so. So it's what I like to tell everyone is to consider weight loss or health gain, as I prefer to call it. That focus on health gain, weight loss will happen on its own. Literally is what I tell everyone. Focus on adding good things to your diet. The bad things will get crowded out on their own. And this process, one, should be enjoyable. Second, it should be a well thought out scientific thing which doesn't harm your body. Of course, it's going to benefit you, but it should definitely not harm your body. And by the end of it, you should lose your weight, but gain health. Like I keep saying again and again, all your deficiencies, which could probably have been there before when you were maybe heavier, should not be there by the time you lose weight. So focus on all of that and you'll do just fine. It's a marathon. Please consider it like that. So make it an enjoyable marathon. Do not try to sprint into weight loss. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely right. And you did mention somewhere that, we gained so much of weight during the Corona times. So we can't expect to lose it in a month or so. So it has to be kind of a marathon. It cannot be a sprint. I totally agree with you. It cannot be a fast 100 meters sprint. So coming back to the book, there is one topic which everyone talks about. And you also, I'm sure, since you've mentioned in the book, is about intermittent fasting. And that is the latest, I would again say, a fad. Everyone talks about it without knowing what is it really all about. And some people are definitely, as I see, harming their bodies as well. So coming from you, a little bit on intermittent fasting, I'm sure. Though there's a chapter, people should go back and read about it. But I still feel coming few pointers from you will really help a lot of us here.
Yes. I totally get it. We should talk about it because everyone is talking about it. And even if they're not talking about it, they're thinking about it today.
Yes.
Intermittent is the latest. And my issue with intermittent is that there is not enough right information about it everywhere. So it's just it's hearsay. You just hear someone else doing it in a particular way and you start just following that trend. It's like herd mentality, like I say, which is really where we go wrong, because every body is different. You're not part of the herd. You have your own individual body. You have to consider it and give it that respect, right? So now intermittent fasting is actually, let me correct you, it's not a fad. So a fad diet is a diet in which they ask you to remove or maybe reduce to quite an extent any particular macronutrient. Some of them ask you to completely give up fat. Some of them ask you to, give up carbohydrates completely. So if they're asking you to remove a major part of your nutrient profile completely, that's a fad diet. Now, intermittent doesn't do all that. Intermittent does not tell you what to eat or what not to eat. So it was more of a lifestyle change. So it's not a diet, it's just a way of changing the way you're living or the way you're eating, So basically, intermittent fasting is again of multiple types. I mean, the chapter is very detailed, as you.
Yes, it
And
is.
anyone who's interested in intermittent fasting must definitely please read that chapter. I mean, even though it's my book and I'm saying so myself, before they embark on trying to, apply it on their body. There are many ways to do intermittent fasting. The most original traditional way, and it was not called intermittent fasting then, it was just a way of life for our ancestors, was that it was a very simple way that they used to follow. They used to eat in the morning, they would go out to work or not maybe go out to work, and then the last meal would be before sunset, before they would retire, because that was the way they lived at that time. No one really stepped out after sunset. But today, of course, things are completely different. We don't even get home before 9, 10 at times. So those times were different. So today, people have modified it, and it's got the sanction of the West. So it's considered hot. And the whole principle is still the same, that you give the body or your digestion a rest of certain number of hours when you don't eat anything at all. So the normal way most people eat, even today, would be an intermittent fasting of 12 hours gap. For example, someone finishes dinner at 9, and for example, if I'm talking about my parents, they would finish their dinner latest by 8:39, and their breakfast next day would be probably at 8:39. So there'll be a 12 hours gap automatically, for them. They weren't really tea people. If you're having tea, then of course it's not 12 hours gap. But so this is one way of doing intermittent fasting, keeping a 12 hours gap, which is good enough for the body. Personally, if you ask me, if you do it on a regular basis. But then you could stretch it to 14 hours. You could finish dinner at 7 and, eat 14 hours later in the morning. The most common type is 16 hours, which can be a bit of a stretch because people are not used to it. So that brings about a bit of a change, lifestyle change, mindset change. It works very well if you can do it, because it gives your body a big chunk of time wherein you're not bombarding it with food or drinks or anything else, any toxins. So you let the body recover, revitalize, detox everything. Give it time to do the stuff it hasn't been. It's like us, right? We also need time to downsize, to just not do something for a few hours of the day. So the body also needs that. It's a machine that also needs rest, right? So intermittent, basically consider it like that in simple terms, gives the body rest and time to maybe pursue its hobbies or do a repair work or anything else that it wants to do in that time. So the benefits are many: anti-aging, detoxing, cleansing. Weight loss is just a byproduct. If you consider intermittent fasting as a weight loss tool, you'll be very, very disappointed. It is not going to work like that. It doesn't. You might lose weight. Might is the catchword here. But do not depend on it. The health gain would be far more if you can do it. But that said, not everyone can do it. And please don't try to do it. Don't push your body into it if your body is rebelling, Maybe it's not for you. Like everything is not for everybody, right? So maybe intermittent fasting is for you or it's not for you. So figure it out whether it works for you. And the best way to do it is go step by step. I tell everyone, even if I tell everyone, I'm really liberal that way, even with my patients, If you can do 12 hours, I'm more than happy. Trust me, if you can consistently do a 12-hour fasting, 9 to 9 in the morning, I'm perfect. Or like 7 to 7 in the morning, whatever works for you, works for me. So do 12 hours, and that is going to give you enough benefit to your body. Maybe if you want to, push the envelope a little bit, maybe move it up to 13 hours or go up to 14 hours and see if you can do it. If you can't, just reverse back to 12 hours. And I think that will be good enough for you.
I think 12 hours is quite doable. The bracket that you're mentioning, 9 to 9, is, I think, doable for everybody. And I think one should always do what your body says. And I think that's the best part in your book. And that's the best part I've noticed in your writings and whenever you're speaking about it, that you say we should do whatever we are comfortable in. It's not that we do it because we have to push ourselves. But one thing I've noticed that you've always been very particular about, and you've mentioned this again and again, that stress and sleep, they are one of the factors, rather two very important factors, which really don't let you to gain to lose weight. And I agree, but you've really been, I've noticed, really been talking about it, writing about it. So that's a few pointers from you. Why do you particularly say that yes, stress and sleep, they don't let you lose weight?
Because our lifestyle as a whole is responsible for the way we look, how much we weigh, the way we are feeling. All of them are connected. So let's take them one by one. If you're not sleeping well, it's the same as if you're not giving your digestion a break, those problems will start. If you're not sleeping well, again, you're not giving all the body organs time to rest, revitalize. For example, I'll tell you a very simple thing that I tell every single teenager or a young adult who comes to me, that your entire hormonal cycle changes at 12 because of the circadian rhythm. That is how the body is structured, right? 12, meaning 12 is like a ballpark. It's not a ballpark figure. It could be 11, it could be 11:30, it could be 12:30. But at that point, your rest hormones come into play. All your endorphins and the ones that are supposed to actually do a lot of work want to rest. But if you do not go to sleep after 12 and you are awake and you keep doing this on a daily basis, what are you doing? You are literally pushing your body to do stuff that it can't handle. So obviously there'll be a lot of wear and tear, which will show up as different forms. One form is weight gain, because if your hormones are out of whack, even if you go on a starvation diet, take it from me, and I've tried it with people, very low calorie diets, not eating, and they're honest, you will not lose weight. The body will adapt. So the point is that everything is connected, all the dots are connected. And if you can't just say that, like, for example, some people, they say that I exercise, so I don't need to look at my food. That is wrong. The same way, if some people say that I am going to, eat very, very careful, just a bite of this, and, I'll do a very low calorie, 800 calorie diet every day of my life, but they don't put their sleep cycle on track, they will not lose weight. Take it from me, they will not lose weight. You need to tackle everything that is wrong with your lifestyle. You have to lead a holistic life. So by holistic life, I mean everything needs to be, all the bases need to be covered. Very easy to say, I know, difficult to practice. But the very fact is that this is the very first step. Acknowledge it first. Understand, the information is the key. Know that sleep is important. So once you're convinced that sleep could be the problem why you're not losing weight, you will work on it, right? The way, if you're convinced that you're eating wrong, you go to a nutritionist, right? Or a dietitian to sort out the food. So similarly, how I work with the patient is I look at every aspect and I give that's all I can do. I can only give advice, can't force or do something for somebody. But I believe in not looking just at food alone or calories alone or just exercise alone. But sleep is very, very important. So I try and get that sorted. The way I try and get their water sorted, the way I try and get their fiber sorted, I try and get their sleep also sorted. Coming to stress, it's very complex. It's so complex that no one understands it. And why just weight gain? That genesis of every single modern lifestyle disease today lies in stress. You take diabetes, you take cancer, you take autoimmune disorders. All of them are connected to stress directly. So is weight gain. There are two types of eaters. One, who eat when they're stressed. Most people are like that, right? So comfort eating. And then there are others who don't eat when they're stressed. They stop eating completely. Both are equally bad. And I like to point that out always whenever we talk about stress, because don't think that because you lose weight when you're stressed, you're doing your body any good. You're not. So both ways there's a problem. That is one way stress makes you gain weight, by comfort eating wrong. The second way is more complex because stress affects all the hormones in the body, the hormones that decide your satiety, the hormones that decide the food that you're eating, will it be converted into fat or converted or used up for your energy. So if your hormone is out of whack and it decides, because you're stressed, that whatever little you might be eating, I'm going to hoard it because this is do or die situation. This is stress. This person is forever in stress. So this person might need energy later. So you could be eating very less, but all of it could be going to your stomach, to your middle. So stress works on multiple fronts. And it's the most difficult to tackle, I've seen. With sleep, with food, with exercise, there are clear pointers. You can tell somebody this is how it's going to work. And eventually, when they practice it, very easily sorted. No trouble at all I've seen. किसी को कम time लगता है, किसी को ज़्यादा time लगता है, but we managed to reach there and we are able to sort out all these habits because I believe in a habit changing principle. I don't believe in a close your eyes, follow my diet principle. I don't work like that at all. My patients or clients know every single, the reason behind every single thing I'm doing with them. They're not interested, I force it on them. They have to listen to me. They need to know why they're doing what they're doing. But with stress, always tough. A person first has to acknowledge that they're stressed and figure out, and they can only do it, no one else can do it for them, what can actually help them mitigate their stress. Different things help different people. It's hit and trial, but they have to find out what will help. Sometimes very simple things help. Just listening to music sometimes helps. Taking a shower before going to sleep has helped so many patients. They've tried everything. They've tried meditation. They've tried, complex things, healing. But just this simple thing, it's helped so many of my patients, and it's not funny. Just that small ritual of having a cup of green tea. Actually, I ask everyone, some follow, some don't, to have a cup of green tea and 2 walnuts and an anjeer before they go to sleep. So basically, people who are stress personalities, I add a shower just before that. So take a shower, clean up, gadgets out of the room if possible, if not at least silent in the room, but silent and a little far away from you. And then a cup of green tea and 2 walnuts and 1 anjeer. Just try it out. It's magic.
I know. This is what your book is all about. It's about these small little things that make it up, and all your other books also. It really helps. And I remember you also mentioned somewhere that, you also sometimes your patients just go for a walk with music on, and you never know, within 1 hour of walk, you've lost, you're so much fitter because you're feeling so de-stressed and everything. I have a couple of people who really want to ask you questions directly. I have few questions still, but I'll keep on coming in between.
Sure.
And
Lovely.
It's always better to have some interactive round here. Before I move on to them, there is one question which always gets into me. And since we're talking about healthy lifestyle, this is about oil. And this is like troubles everyone. There is so much controversy about, I know this is a little out of context, but I want to ask you right now. Which is the best oil for? Please, you have to tell us this. Because we are so confused. Is it refined? Is it olive? Everyone keeps on confusing you. Which oil to cook? One of the, very famous nutritionist was mentioning the other day, olive oil was meant not for Indian cooking. It was meant only for Mediterranean cooking. So, I am a little confused, and so are we. So what do you think, which is the best oil we should use for our cooking?
Okay. So before I really get down to oil, I want to make a blanket statement. That is that when it comes to food, whether we're talking about grains, whether we're talking about fruits, whether we are talking about vegetables, and whether we're talking about protein, different sources, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, and whether we're talking about oils, the biggest rule or principle to follow is variety. What our parents or our mothers used to tell us, eat all the fruits, eat all the sabzis. What was the simple thought behind this very simple statement, which doesn't sound very, big or, something very, something to be put in quotes, but There's so much depth behind just this simple statement ki sari sabzi khao. Why? Because the only principle that can actually, if you want to follow one principle in life to stay healthy, eat variety, and not, why restrict it just to fruits, just to vegetables is what I'm trying to say. Move it, change it, apply it to grains. Our problem started, I'm again going offbeat here, but our problem started when we started relying too much on just wheat and rice and forgot about the other grains that are available to us. Now, when people are bringing all of them back, things are getting better with their health, and they're realizing also it's not just a change in taste, it's a change in nutrient composition of the food that you're eating as well. So that is helping a lot. Coming to oils, it's the very same principle. Why do you want to rely on just one oil to cook?
Okay.
Just because a particular oil is being advertised more, or a particular oil's compound is being flashed in advertisements this month or this year, maybe next year, another oil will be the toast of, the marketing guys. You don't have to depend on just one oil. That's the first thing, variety, right? The second rule for oils very clearly is try and stick to the oils that your grandmother used to use, because you've grown up in a certain region. All this is covered in my book, Ultimate Grandmother Hacks, actually, where, there's a chapter called Eat Like Your Grandmother Did, because that was a genesis of that book. It's just a chapter in that book, but that is my favorite chapter in that book, because that is why that book came about. So if you lived in a region, or if genetically your ancestors have been using mustard oil, please continue to use that. Not just because your taste buds are used to it, but also because your genetic code is, very used to it. Nutrition science hasn't even reached this level yet. I'm telling you, we haven't researched this yet, but this is common sense. This is logic. Eventually, studies will prove this also, like they're proving all the other traditional rules that were being followed earlier, That is the second principle. First is variety. Second is your, use the genetic code. Follow the genetic code and use the oil
That's a very important tip.
Very important thing. And it's a very easy thing to do, for majority of your cooking.
Okay.
Then the third point is try and stick to cold pressed oil as much as possible. Try and avoid refined oils as much as possible. I'm not somebody who's going to say stop refined oils, because I know it's not practical. I also can't simply completely stop them. But, you have to keep changing the gradient. If you've been cooking completely in refined oil, bring it down to 50% first, and then slowly introduce other, bring down refined oil, I would say, to not more than 20% of your cooking. And use that only for frying, if at all. Eventually, but it might take you some time to get there, and I totally get it. There are tastes to be considered. There are budgetary constraints to be considered. There are so many other things to be considered. Refined oils, actually, as the name suggests, aren't really good for us, because they've been chemically treated. They've been refined. Too many processes have gone into them. So obviously, they won't be as good for us as would be cold pressed oils, right? But again, the catch, they're expensive. Cold pressed oils are expensive. So you figure out the balance, how you can use what. What I suggest is that keep changing the oils. That's the most practical way to go about it. Never buy 5-liter tins. Never. One, because they get spoiled. The more the oil stays, it gets oxidized, So never buy big liters of oil. Buy a particular oil this month, finish that, change it to another oil the next month. That way, one, you will remove the risk, you will cut down the risks of different oils and get the benefits of different oils turn by turn. And secondly, this is one way of doing this. Second way of doing this is what I practice is that you choose 3 oils, 3 to 4 fat sources. Like, for example, one can be ghee, one can be mustard oil, maybe one can be coconut oil. So either mustard or coconut, because, again, depending on where you are from, which part of the country you're from. And one can be a cold pressed oil, which can be olive, sesame,
Okay.
any of these, here how you divide it is that the dals you do in the ghee, right?
Okay.
The sabzis you can do either in mustard or coconut.
So right.
Okay. On the fulka, you can put the ghee, right?
Right.
And if you're doing the salads, or if you're doing like a simple stir fry where the oil will not go to a very high temperature, then you can use the cold pressed oils, which could be olive, which could be sesame, which could be any cold pressed oil, So this way you split the oil use and you give just the right balance, because fatty acids also are of multiple types. It's very complicated. There's saturated, there's unsaturated. In unsaturated also poly and monounsaturated. So you don't have to get into all this. You don't have to do a full nutrition class or course to understand all this. Just follow this simple tip that I've told you. Just divide your vegetables and cook some in ghee, some in oil. And if you have to fry, just fry that in refined oil. I mean, obviously you will make puri someday, you will make pakora someday, and why should you not? So use oil just for that, because using ghee for that, sorry, even I would not be able to afford. So I would not suggest that to you. So that is how I think if you can spread your oil intake, you will not go wrong with oil. Olive oil in particular, I can clarify this for you. There are a lot of different kinds of olive oils, So if you want to do Indian cooking where the temperature goes up very high, then of course I would not suggest that you use, because with olive oil, it's best to stick to cold pressed olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, because that's the one which is actually going to give you the benefits, right? Other olive oils are just offshoots or there's slightly refined forms, so no point in buying those. Might as well buy a regular oil from the market at half the price. So use olive oil if you want to for salads, like I said, for stir fries, maybe to put on the pizza a little bit, because these are good fats. They're good for you. There's no harm at all. But again, we have not really grown up on that. So use them as an additional oil.
Very good. And very important takeaway. I had just ordered 5 liters of olive oil, and I'm sure it needs to go back to Amazon straight away. So I begin the interactive round right now. I would request Kavita Batra. She's an ex-corporate. And
one thing, Neeta, 1 second. Just if you have, or you already have the olive oil and it can't go back, just make sure that you store it in a place where it doesn't get direct sunlight.
Okay.
So that it doesn't oxidize.
Okay.
Because it won't spoil. It's oil, right? But you make sure that you store it right, not humid. Shouldn't be a humid place, and direct sunlight will spoil it. So just avoid, and then you can keep slowly using it. You don't have to send it back.
Oh, lovely. Now we have Babita. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi, Kavita. Very interesting session. And I think I badly needed it because I've tried all kinds of diets and failed miserably. And finally decided, realized that the portion size is the key. And but everybody's been talking about going back to roots.
Yeah.
And just one question, because I used to love pickles. Yeah. And that's the first thing all the dietitians talk. So I had just one question. I have a couple of questions, in fact. One was that if pickles are so bad, then why our mother and grandmother invested so much time in making it? And I used to see my grandmother making it every summer and storing it and giving it to me whenever I had a stomach ache, and especially the nimbu kachar. So why pickles are bad? And why we can't have it. All dietitians said big no to it. Second is combining 2 protein, is it bad? Is it like if you're having dal, you're not supposed to have paneer with it? And the third question is, which is the best cuisine to have? I know my daughter is doing food technology, and she says even in Singapore, they're saying Indian cuisine is the best. So just these are my questions.
So you're highly mistaken. Pickles are not bad for you. Let me tackle pickles first. That's so close to my heart. And I like to clarify this. So I'm so glad that you picked that up. I write about it all the time. You'll find it in my books. There are pickle recipes in my books. Come on. So if I'm giving you recipes and if I'm telling you to eat them, I don't consider them bad at all. Every single client of mine has pickle. There are rules to pickle eating. Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you read Lakshmi, I have a column there. Next month, the November column is on pickles. I've just sent it today morning, so it's so fresh in my mind. it's about why pickles are good for us. So it's exactly opposite to what you are seeing or what you've been told. I also did a column or a recipe column for Quint, another column that I have on healthy pickle recipe. So the catchword is healthy. Okay. And the rules to pickle eating are very simple. One, it should be eaten like a pickle, not like a sabji. The moment you eat it like a pickle, there is no harm at all. It was, as you rightly said, always a part of the traditional thali.
Yeah.
The thali that we ate always had a little bit of pickle in it, right? Because of two reasons. One, most of the pickles that we eat are probiotic, so they're actually good for the stomach. They go and increase the good bacteria in your stomach. So if you're eating them with a meal, they're actually going to ensure that you absorb the nutrients from the other food that you're eating better. So they are small, but they're potent. They're very good for you. Yeah. So just don't be scared of pickles. Like my first chapter, don't fear food. Understand. So now today you'll understand pickle is good for you. You'll never fear it again. That's the whole point, right? The first rule was portion size. Second rule was it's really good for you. So eat it as part of your meal. Third, most important rule, which you also somehow mentioned. Earlier, we used to eat only homemade pickles.
Yes.
Where you can control the kind of oil going in the pickle, you can control the ingredient. You'll take the best nimbus. Your mothers would take the best, most juiciest of nimbus to make that. Yes. Know exactly how much oil to add. Know exactly how much sugar to add if it is in, pickle, and make it in completely hygienic circumstances at home. Properly ferment it and make it so that it actually becomes a probiotic. So if you can stick to these three rules of pickle eating, portion size, of course, variety is a rule which applies to every single food, so applies to pickle as well. And the third is homemade. There is no harm at all for eating pickle every day. So please don't fear pickles at all. I think they're a very intrinsic part of our Indian cuisine and a very good part of our Indian cuisine. All the good, without realizing, just because we think pickles have oil, too much salt, everyone asks you to stop them. That's not the point. If you have a hypertension problem, then you avoid the pickles which have too much salt. Mm-hmm. If you have a sugar issue, then you avoid the meatha pickles, right? So you can choose them. There are pickles which have been made with very little oil, very little salt as well. So you could probably go for those. Right. Okay. So this was the first question. The second question was?
Combining two proteins.
Yes. So combining two proteins, scientifically, there is no problem. If you're having paneer with dal, there is no problem. If you're having curd with dal, there is no problem. I'll tell you why dietitians, you and I do that. Say or ask you not to have two proteins is the simple principle of portion control. Okay. If you're having one katori of dal, one katori of paneer, one katori of dahi, basically, if they're asking you to have just one, they're trying to do calorie control in a way. Okay. And so a smarter way would be if you want to have two of them, you could have half katori of paneer, half katori of dal. Okay. There is no problem at all in combining protein there.
Okay.
But I know everyone says that, and this is the reasoning behind it. Why everyone asks you not to have combine them together. If they have some other reasoning, I personally have not faced any problem giving combined proteins to people.
Okay.
Okay.
And the third one. The third one was which is the best cuisine? My daughter says is the Indian. She's studying food technology. So
Indian, there are benefits to each and every cuisine, which is why so many of certain pockets of people worldwide are healthier compared to other people, right? For example, Japanese cuisine for me, I think is extremely healthy, but it won't work for us because it doesn't work for our palate, right? Mediterranean cuisine is extremely healthy again, and it works for us because it's a little familiar, at least some of the ingredients are familiar, so we are able to follow that to an extent. Peruvian cuisine is healthy. I mean, these are cuisines we don't even know so much about. So every cuisine is healthy as long as you follow the right rules of that. If I can use the word, if you bastardize a cuisine, then no cuisine is healthy. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
In traditional way we used to eat earlier was definitely healthy.
Mm.
Not what we eat today. That is not Indian cuisine. That is not how we were supposed to eat. Gravies and too much carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So if we can follow the principles, the broad principles of Indian cuisine, as were followed earlier, variety. For example, the thali does automatic portion control. It gives you variety. It makes sure that you eat a little of everything and you eat different, foods every day. But obviously not practical today. Who's going to make so many things today, right? But you take the broad principles from the Indian cuisine, and it's extremely healthy for us because one, like I mentioned in the beginning, genetic code. Our body can handle that food and that way of eating. So for us, I would say yes, Indian cuisine would be the best.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you.
And next we have Dia. She's the technical head at our literature series. In the meantime, there's a question from Sangeeta Arora. She says that I take tea in the morning during my fasting period of intermittent fasting. Is it okay?
So then, no. The moment you have something, that's when the clock starts.
Okay.
Right. You have to calculate accordingly.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, it's amazing listening to you because this session is honestly so insightful since I myself have been wanting to gain weight and I was so lost because I honestly don't know how to. So thank you so much. I just have one question. I feel like when it comes to teenagers, there's that thought they're in a pretty healthy shape, so as to say, as compared to those older in most cases. And so they don't actually do much to actually maintain their health. We all know that after a certain age, every single body faces health issues. So what would you suggest for teenagers that what should we be doing right now for a healthier future?
Okay. So this is, I think, yeah, you're right. I have also seen this in the younger lot. This mindset is very prevailing and it's wrong because you know what? Your foundation of how healthy you would be. I know it's not easy when you're 20 to think about how healthy you want to be at 40 or even 50. I know it's not easy. But if you can think about that now, you will probably be the happiest and healthiest person when you're in your 40s or your 50s. And because at this point, and in your early 20s or maybe, maybe even late 20s, if you can actually be disciplined to a certain extent, you don't have to be very strict with yourself, but if you can be disciplined, at least broadly, follow the broad rules, you would make sure that you do not face any health issues. And you know what I actually would like to tell every youngster today is that every disease you thought would happen, in your parents' generation would happen when they had turned 50, is now happening to people when they're turning 30. So that is changing. So do not think that, this can be a free for all time for you because the diseases are still 20 years or 30 years, ahead of you. No. Hypertension, diabetes, stress-related issues, even autoimmune disorders, which one had never heard of till, people entering their 60s, arthritis and stuff like that. All of those have become younger, much, much younger, trust me. And so things have changed, the bodies have changed, the environment has changed. Your parents lived in a far more sterile environment, much less toxic than what you guys are living in, So you have to change your mindset and work on your body today. Like I say, you get one body, so don't leave it to the later. Please just begin on your work on your body right away. And it'll be easier now, because right now you have to take probably 2 or 3 steps. And if you just leave it for later, you probably just have to completely change everything, So focus on your health from now on. Get your regular tests done, not just food alone. Keep exercise. And even if you can't exercise, make sure your movement every day, is enough. Don't be a couch potato. Do not sit on the couch all the time. I know it's very difficult with working from home and everything. But simple movement is possible as long as you know the value of it, So begin now is what I would advise everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
So right, Kavita, you mentioned somewhere that there's a lot of importance to which we don't give to the small motions, small movements. That's so important. I'll take a few next few questions because of the time. We have Yuvraj Dhingra. He's a student of class 12th. He's an avid reader and he's into social welfare.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad to see you. I'm impressed that you're interested in health at this age.
Right. Ma'am, so, it's an absolutely engaging session and I'm absolutely loving it. And pertaining to my question, it's not really specific to what kind of diet a teenager should have, but I'm really, concerned about the way people perceive. So talking about the attitudes of the teenagers today, I think they tend to misconceptualize the fact that having a fit body is equal to having a slim body, and in fact they're absolutely two different things. So why is it always like that? People are seeing this from a socially constructive point of view, that you need to be slim in order to be fit, and you need to be slim in order to be loved by everyone else in the society.
Totally agree with you. This is where the problem starts. This whole concept that skinny is good is so wrong. I know so many slim people who are so unhealthy, it's not a joke, and you could be a little overweight, slightly higher on the BMI scale, but you could be very healthy from inside, right? Like, for example, the biggest problem that thin people or slim people face is that they think that they'll never get diabetes. But so many thin people get diabetes because they don't understand that maybe they look thin, but still their fat percentage in the body could be higher compared to the muscle mass. Their muscle mass might be less. So there are a lot of factors that determine how healthy you are. And just your appearance is not enough. The problem is, I would not blame just social media for this. Social media is what, about 10 years old, in India at least. But this whole perception has been going on for a much longer time. And I blame the generations before, which, actually gave so much emphasis on looks. So the whole mindset, it's got wired like that. So, and we aren't doing enough to change it. That is my concern. I don't think too much is being done to change the mindset completely. Something radical has to be done to, change this thinking of the younger people so that when they grow up, this can change. Because external appearance is not as important as your inner wellness, is what I keep telling everyone. And that inner wellness is something you can feel. You would know whether you're sleeping well, whether you have a spring in your feet when you get up in the morning, or you tire too easily. All these are factors which tell you whether you are doing well inside or not. And focusing on that has to be the, I think the important thing here. And if we can teach that, I don't know, you guys need to do this, because who's going to listen to old foggies like us? But the younger lot needs to just completely keep this conversation going, and remove this body shaming and everything. I don't think it's getting any lesser. It's just not. It's only increasing, I've realized over the years, and that really saddens me. So I'm really glad you picked that up. I feel a lot of work needs to be done on this, because mental issues are involved here. It's not just health, physical. Mental issues are involved in this a lot.
Right, definitely, ma'am. Agreed. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Next, we have Alka Khanna. She's an executive with the international NGO Able Charities. And there was also a comment from Rotarian Vivek Dukal, and he says that we mostly discuss about how to lose weight. On the contrary, how about gaining weight?
Yeah, so let me tackle that first. Yes, of course, like as Dia also was mentioning, gaining weight is tougher. Hands down, it's tougher, because, losing weight, still you can figure out what habits you can work on and get them to lose weight. But gaining weight, people who don't gain weight very easily have a bit of a metabolism issue. Their metabolism is extremely high. So and they somehow are not big eaters, So making them eat more and the right food. You can't gain weight by eating junk. It's not going to happen. So if you have to gain weight, you have to make sure that you increase the amount of protein in your diet. And that brings results. I've tried that with people, increasing protein sustainably with a lot of fiber so that there's no constipation and your gut doesn't get impacted over a period of time. Again, not immediately, brings results. You can gain weight like that.
Yes, Alka. Alka.
Yes. Well, Kavita, I must say it's a beautiful session. And I'm pretty orthodox in my approach to food. But these days, I have two questions. These days, all the fusion food, that really bothers me. And plus the foods that we are having from abroad. Like these days, everything is available. It's you can have Lebanese food, I don't know, from all over the countries. Like when we were growing up, only one burger, pizza, and maybe Chinese were there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how many cuisines my children have. I just don't know. And somehow is that ruining our health?
Okay.
And the second question, okay, you answer this question, then I'll ask it.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any harm in trying out. I mean, I'm a little liberal like that. I don't think there's any harm in trying out different cuisines. The problem is the frequency.
Yeah, okay.
When we were growing up, you and I remember we would eat out on special occasions.
Right.
Birthdays, anniversaries. Maybe if somebody got really good marks. So, on an average, once in 2 months, once in 3 months, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, true.
And we made every occasion count. So I still remember those meals that we had out. And rest all were homemade meals, right?
Yeah.
Today, out of 3 meals a day, most people, young people, are eating 2 meals out. So from once in 3 months, so you see the jump.
True.
In eating out. So that is the problem. Eating out so often is definitely a problem because, again, like I said, you can't control the ingredients, you can't control the quality, you can't control the portion size. So trying out new stuff, there is no harm at all.
And it's more tastier. I don't know, home food is always boring and not so tasty, I think.
I don't think so.
For the kids.
So. It's again herd mentality. I personally think it's again herd mentality. I don't see how a person, it foxes me also, can enjoy eating that same pizza 3 times a week. You can't. Right? You can't.
No, it comes with age, actually. My second question, I always believed was, or at least that's what my grandmothers and all said, that whatever is going around, growing maybe in 200 kilometers around you is healthy for you because that is seasonal and you're eating all the right stuff. But today, there is no such thing because you're getting everything from everywhere all the year round. Absolutely. There is no seasonal food.
I agree. There is no seasonal food even in the country. You get gobi all the year round today.
Yeah.
We eat gobi all the year round.
All fruits.
If you ask somebody, they won't even know which are the seasonal fruits or vegetables today because these children, it's not their fault. They've seen everything come all the year round. The problem is there's a scientific reason behind it. From the time you reap a fruit or a vegetable, it's cut, to the time it makes it to your plate, the more the time is spent, more is the nutrition loss. A lot of vitamin C would get lost as much as the time would, similarly with other nutrients. So this simple thing that you mentioned, which our grandmothers used to mention, कि 200 किलोमीटर आसपास खाना जो वो 200 भी नहीं, वो तो कहते थे 50 मील दूर के अंदर जो खाना है उसमें ही आप खाओ. That, because obviously the taste would be different, right? Fresh would always taste better. And second, nutrition quality of that food will be far, far higher. So
plus, again, I think our Indian culture, I think all the seasonal foods, all that till you have and all that. In these days, I read in the Shraddh time that if you have kheer, it is actually good for the pith of your body. So I think Indian cooking was quite scientific.
Scientific, very, very scientific. I don't know how they figured it out, but all that they figured out then was probably common sense. But today science is proving it right. Each one of those principles, which is what, I mean, I'm sorry I'm mentioning it again, but the ultimate grandmother hacks is a compilation of all these traditional habits that our grandmothers, that generation used to follow.
Yeah.
And the scientific rationale behind it. So now science is proving all of them right for us.
And last part to my question, is there food for the soul, mind, and body different? Or any food that makes you happy is good for you? I don't know.
Food for, there's a chapter in my book which says, ultimate grandmother hacks, which talks about food that makes you a better person. So there is food for everything.
Okay. How interesting.
Yeah. There are different foods for mind. There are different foods for your soul, literally, I'm telling you. And there are different foods for your physical health.
Oh, okay.
And all of them are scientifically proven. I'm not talking out of my hat. I've given explanation there.
Okay.
You read that chapter. I think this is what you are looking for. You read that chapter.
Look forward to that.
Yeah. How food can actually make you a better person. There are foods that can actually reduce your anger as well, So there's food for everything. Only thing is information, right? Information for everyone. It must reach.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Kavita. That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kavita, for answering all the questions so patiently. I'm sure everyone is really gaining a lot from your session today. I have just one last quick question from Kavita Devgan, who's a homeopath doctor, and she wants to ask you directly.
Yeah.
Yes, Divya, please.
Yeah. Hi, Kavita. A lovely session.
Thank you.
Just a quick question: how do you rate genetics, mind, and habit on the health marathon?
So genetics,
mindset, and habits.
All three I would give literally equal, percentage of importance, because your genes, you can't change them. I would say you are born with them, so you have to live with them. It's like, you're born with a certain set of genes. So if you're born with a propensity to diabetes, you have that propensity. But with your habits, you can definitely bring about a change. You can make sure that if your genetic propensity of diabetes is so strong that you have to get diabetes in your 40s, because your parents, your grandparents, your entire family would get it at that point, you can make sure that you stop it at the pre-diabetes level with your habits, as long as you are aware, right? And mind, I would say, is the king of all. Trust me, because your mind can control your habits. Your mind would control your habits. If your mind is not into it, you will not be able to change your habits at all. I'm a big believer of habit changer. That's what all my books talk about, because I believe that's the only way to gain health. Figure out your habits and modify them. So if your mind can control your habits, then your habits can tame, I would say tame, I can't say remove the genetic propensity. So that is how they're connected. So all three is really important.
Put the mind first.
Put the mind first. Yes. But you can't ignore the other two. You can't ignore.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for a wonderful question, Divya, and thank you.
Lovely question. Made me think of it.
Wonderfully answering. Thank you, Kavita. It was such an enriching session. With your practical advice for simple lifestyle change, we surely can lead a more vibrant, happy, and healthy life. So it's a wonderful book. I'm sure everyone agrees by now. So all we have to do is order for it and read it and write your reviews on Amazon. And I'm sure this book is really
if we have a minute, I just want to tell Divya something.
Yes.
There are these, of course, there are a lot of sections in the book, like you must have seen, Neeta. There are these regular Gyan wale strategies and everything. Then there are quizzes, and then there are diets, and then of course there are these hacks and stuff like that. Yes. But my favorite part, what I have done, which is somebody who takes food in that thing would probably understand, are these sections that have done snapshots.
You're right.
So I have a whole lot of these snapshots, about 7, 8, I don't know how many, 10 of them now, I've forgotten also how many of them. there are a lot of these snapshots. Okay, 7 snapshots, which actually delve into this. For example, I can just read one for you here so that you will get what I'm talking about, because I believe also that mind is so important in this whole process. Okay, so I'll read this one, the one that is open, snapshot 3. Look at the past and learn. What was it like growing up? What were your food and lifestyle choices then? Reminiscence. Spend time going back to that phase. There's lots of good stuff to pick up from there. There could also be some triggers there that have shaped some of your wrong food habits. After all, the habits we are growing up influence our food habits immensely now. Make a list of the good and the bad and begin working on incorporating one good habit and eliminating one bad habit every week. For example, incorporate snacking on fruits for your midday meals and eliminate drinking aerated drinks with your meals. So these actually snapshots go beyond the regular advice, practical. These delve into the deep issues that all of us are facing. So I just love these snapshots. So if whoever reads the books, please don't ignore the snapshots and consider them, give them a thought. That is just
I'm sure they're not going to ignore anything now. It's such a wonderfully written book. And as I mentioned, that it can really be a good resource for your bookshelves. Thank you, Kavita, once again. It's been a pleasure, and thank you, Rupa Publications, for interesting session today.